Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we are taking a structured, neutral look at a pretty sobering text regarding ecological collapse. Now, before we dive into the deep end, I want to clarify something right up front. As the foundation for our analysis today, Shengshen de Soyo Shipeng He Ingyao Neilong Mayu Yu Shiming Chan Ren Life Chen Yuan Chuangzhi Li Sui Feng. Our goal here isn't to debate or take sides. We're just going to clearly lay out the source material to understand exactly what his warnings entail, why he believes we are on a remarkably strict timeline, and what he actually proposes as a survival strategy. Okay, let's get into it. 9. I want you to hold that number in your head for a second. According to a recent report from the prominent scientific journal Nature, the Earth has 15 established climate tipping points. And right now, 9 out of those 15 have already been or are currently being breached. It's a pretty stark piece of data, but it sets the perfect stage for our source material today. This frames the very real physical reality of the world that the author is responding to. And this quote brilliantly hits the nail on the head regarding the core thesis of Xu Feng's 2022 writings. He's looking at all these global climate anomalies, the record-breaking heat, the bizarre weather patterns, and he absolutely does not view them as random bad luck. He interprets them as clear, escalating, and repeated warnings to humanity from nature itself. He argues that the Earth is actively signaling to us that our current way of life is fundamentally incompatible with the planet's systems.
Now, Xu Feng does reference standard scientific assessments to make his point. Take the World Meteorological Organization, the WMO, for example. They've warned that humanity must face a hotter, drier, and wetter future. But here's what's really interesting. Look at how Xu Feng categorizes that mainstream scientific consensus. He actually calls the WMO's warning, well, soft. To him, just saying things will get hotter and drier is a massive understatement compared to the total systemic shock he envisions.
Section 1. A timeline of predictions. So to really grasp his 2022 writing, we have to rewind a bit and look at his historical track record. Way back in 2005, he began writing what would eventually become nearly 300 warning articles. Then think back to 2009. While pop culture was totally panicking about a sudden apocalypse in 2012, Xu Feng explicitly dismissed it. He said, no way. The crisis wouldn't be a sudden 2012 event, but rather a gradual, step-by-step, intensifying escalation. Fast forward to August 2017, and he issues a highly specific warning. He stated that if traditional human modes of life didn't stop, the natural ecology would completely collapse within a 15 to 20-year window. And across those 300 articles, he mapped out a truly diverse array of crises. He doesn't just point to environmental threats like massive floods and extreme temperature swings. He ties those physical breakdowns directly to biological and social threats. We're talking plagues, pest infestations, mass starvation, and ultimately, human turmoil and war. He views all of these not as isolated problems, but as interconnected symptoms of one single, massive ecological failure. It's like a giant domino effect.
Section 2. The 10-year survival window. Okay, based on the acceleration of the threats we just looked at, the source material narrows the timeline dramatically. 10 years. That is the window we are supposedly looking at. Writing in August 2022, Xu Feng states that based on his feelings and his observations of nature's escalating warnings, he believes the vast majority of people will struggle to survive the next 10 years. It is an incredibly stark claim, basically accelerating his old 2017 prediction right to the absolute brink. To explain exactly how we get from our current reality to that 10-year collapse, Xu Feng relies on this pretty chilling phrase, small changes happen gradually, major changes occur instantly. The crucial point here is his theory of momentum. He argues that for decades we've been experiencing the slow, gradual buildup, the small changes of extreme weather. But he warns that complex systems don't just gradually decline forever. Eventually, they snap. And when that snap happens, well, the result is catastrophic. Xu Feng writes that when the major changes occur instantly, they'll be so abrupt that those caught in it will not see the next day's sun. He's painting a picture of a sudden tipping point where the gradual environmental degradation we've gotten used to suddenly transforms into an unsurvivable overnight collapse for anyone who isn't prepared.
Section 3. The true role of saints.
So how in the world does one face a prediction this severe? Interestingly, Xu Feng completely subverts the typical savior narrative. He points out that various prophecies, both Chinese and foreign, predict a saint will eventually descend to save humanity. However, he explicitly warns his readers, do not passively sit around waiting for a saint to rescue you from the disaster. According to his writings, saints absolutely do not arrive to stop the catastrophe from happening. They only arrive to guide the people who have already managed to survive it.
The fundamental takeaway here is deeply personal. You must find a way to survive first. Survival is an individual prerequisite. It's not a divine rescue mission where you're just airlifted out of danger. If you want to witness the new era or be guided by any prophetic figure at all, the burden falls entirely on your own shoulders right now. Which begs the question, what does that kind of radical self-reliance actually look like?
Section 4. The Ultimate Survival Guide.
So how exactly does one survive? The source material draws a very sharp contrast. Shufeng identifies the traditional mode of human life, chasing money, climbing the ladder for status, and prioritizing exclusive national interests as the literal root cause of the Earth's ecological collapse. His proposed solution, the new mode, requires abandoning those pursuits entirely and focusing inward on what he calls perfecting the spiritual garden.
He actually outlines specific societal behaviors we must immediately abandon. Stop pursuing wealth and material accumulation. Stop chasing status and reputation. Stop clinging to tribal, familial, or nationalistic interests. Let go of the ego-driven desire to be superior to others. And stop hoarding resources like misers. In his view, these behaviors are the toxic elements that are triggering nature's immune response against humanity.
So the survival roadmap according to the Life Chen Yuan founder looks a little like this. Step 1. Let go of everything modern society tells you is important. Wealth, status, superiority. Just drop it. Step 2. Turn your focus inward to perfect your spiritual garden, aligning your internal state completely with nature. And finally, Step 3. Only by doing the first 2 steps can you physically and structurally enter into his proposed new production and life mode, which he claims is the only true shelter against the impending instant change.
Which leaves us with a massive looming question, doesn't it? Given the deeply ingrained nature of human behavior and the incredibly tight 10-year timeline presented in the text, is it even possible for a critical mass of humanity to abandon the traditional mode in time? The source material presents this as an absolute ultimatum: change the mode of existence or face the consequences of a breaking planet.
And yet, despite the tremendous weight and absolute certainty of these dire warnings, Xue Fang concludes his 2022 article with this fascinating paradox. I hope my feelings are 100% wrong, and I wish everyone a long life of auspiciousness and health. It's a striking, deeply human end to a text filled with warnings of imminent collapse. As a final reminder, 生成的所有视频和 audio 内容来源于生命产业学风。结论. That wraps up our explainer for today. What are your main takeaways from this timeline? Let that final thought linger and keep exploring.